Something I want to say before we go anywhere today, and I mean this in the most straightforward way possible, is that the fact that you keep coming back to do this inner work, even when the circumstances of your life are painful and complicated and frankly unfair, tells me something about your character that no outside situation can diminish. You could be somewhere else right now. You chose to be here trying to understand, trying to stay honest with yourself. That's not nothing. That's actually everything. Now, let me tell you what I'm seeing for Virgo today, because it came through with an energy that is equal parts vindicating and sobering, and you deserve to hear all of it. There's a very specific thing that happens in competitive chess when a player executes what they believe is a brilliant, game changing move, and then slowly over the next several exchanges realizes that the position they thought they'd secured is actually indefensible. The move felt decisive, felt clever, felt like it resolved something in their favor that had been uncertain. And in the immediate aftermath, there was even a kind of satisfaction, the particular satisfaction of having made a choice, of having committed, of the ambiguity finally collapsing into a clear direction. The other player across the board seemed diminished by it, smaller, less relevant to the outcome, and then the board revealed itself, move by move, with the patient, indifferent logic that the game always eventually applies regardless of anyone's feelings about it. The position showed its actual nature, not the nature the player imagined when they moved the piece, the real nature. And with each exchange, the indefensibility became more apparent, more undeniable, more impossible to strategize around. The brilliant move turned out to be the move that lost the game. That is where the person who chose someone else over you is standing right now, on a board that has revealed itself in a position that is increasingly, visibly, undeniably untenable. And the piece they moved with such confidence, the choice they made, the third party they selected, the thing they thought was an upgrade or an escape or a simpler alternative to the complexity of what they had with you, that piece is not performing the way they expected it to perform. Not even close. Let me go slowly through what's actually happening, because there are several layers here and I want to give each one its due weight rather than collapsing them into something too simple. The first thing I need to address is you, and specifically the particular quality of what it cost you to watch someone choose someone else. Because there's a kind of humiliation in that experience that is unlike most other painful things. It's not grief exactly, though grief is in it. It's not anger exactly, though anger is in it too. It's something more specific, the experience of being assessed, being compared, being weighed against another option, and found wanting, or at least found less convenient, less immediately appealing, less whatever quality was being prioritized in that moment. The experience of being the one left on the board while someone else was chosen. That experience leaves a mark that isn't always visible. Because you are Virgo, you did not, in all likelihood, collapse publicly. You did not perform your hurt in ways that gave anyone a satisfying drama to watch or participate in. What you did, what you almost certainly did, is what you always do, which is contain it, hold it carefully inside the structure of your daily functioning, keep moving, keep showing up, keep being the precise, capable, quietly extraordinary version of yourself that you are, while inside something was absorbing an impact that deserved more acknowledgement than it received. I see that impact. I want to name it before anything else, because I think the vindicating part of this reading only lands correctly if the hurt part is honored first. You were not wrong to feel what you felt. You were not oversensitive or insufficiently evolved or lacking in some quality that would have made you immune to the pain of that particular rejection. What happened was genuinely painful. And the specific quality of its pain, the comparison, the being passed over, the watching someone choose a lesser thing and believing that choice reflected something about your value, that pain was real and it was proportional to what it actually meant. Let it have been real. You don't have to have been fine. Now, let me tell you what's happened on the other side of that choice. What I'm picking up around the third party, the person they chose, the situation they moved toward, is a picture that has very little of the shine it carried when it was being chosen. And I want to be precise about this because I'm not interested in offering you a petty version of this narrative. I'm not here to describe someone else's misfortune with relish. What I'm here to do is tell you what's actually true in the energy of this situation, because the truth here is genuinely significant. The thing they chose turned out to be a performance of something rather than the thing itself. There's a specific quality I keep feeling when I look at the third party's energy in this, a quality of surface without depth, of presentation without substance, of something that appeared to offer what it could not actually deliver. Not necessarily through malicious intent, though I'm not ruling that out either. Sometimes people misrepresent themselves consciously and deliberately, and sometimes they misrepresent themselves because they've never been required to go deep enough to know there's a gap between what they project and what they actually are. Either way, the gap became apparent. It became apparent in the ways that gaps always become apparent, not through any single revelatory moment necessarily, but through the accumulation of smaller moments where what was promised was not delivered, where the depth that was implied did not materialize when it was actually needed, where the ease that was on offer turned out to be shallowness wearing a more appealing costume, and shallowness, whatever its initial charm, is not something you can build on. You cannot lean into shallowness when things get difficult. You cannot be held by it. You cannot find in it the particular quality of being genuinely known, that human beings, even the ones who tell themselves they don't need that, eventually, inevitably require. The person who chose this found that out. There is a word in the title of this reading that I want to address with some care, because I think it's pointing at something real, but I also think it deserves more precision than it sometimes gets. Played. They got played. That's what the title says. And in the colloquial sense, it's accurate. They made a move based on a misread of the board, and the board corrected them. But I want to go underneath the colloquial version, because what's actually happening is more interesting and more instructive than simply someone being outmaneuvered. What happened to this person is that they mistook certain things for other things. They mistook novelty for depth. The particular excitement that comes from something new, the intensity, the heightened awareness, the way new connections can feel significant simply by virtue of being unfamiliar. They mistook that for something more substantial, for meaning, for the kind of connection that holds and grows and becomes more rather than less over time. And novelty, by its nature, cannot sustain that reading of itself. It burns through its own fuel relatively quickly, and what's left when the novelty is gone is whatever was actually there underneath it, which in this case was not enough. They also mistook the absence of difficulty for the presence of something good. Your connection with them, what existed between you, what you brought to that dynamic was real enough to be complicated. Real things are. Real depth creates real friction sometimes, real demands, real moments where both people are required to be more than comfortable or convenient. That difficulty, that demand was part of what they moved away from towards something that seemed frictionless. And frictionlessness, they are discovering, is often just another word for nothing to push against, nothing to grow with, nothing that will be there when the ease runs out. The ease has run out. I want to stay with something that's been pressing at the edge of this reading since I began and that I haven't yet addressed directly. There is a specific moment, either recently past or arriving imminently, where what has happened in their situation has become or is about to become visible to people beyond just the two of them, where the private reality of how this played out has started to bleed into the more public or social landscape, where people who were watching, who formed opinions, who perhaps made their own assessments of who was the wiser party in this dynamic, are beginning to see the fuller picture. And with that visibility comes something for you that I want to name carefully, because it's real, but it's also complicated. There is a version of this that feels vindicating, that feels like the correction of a record. That feels like the board finally showing everyone what was always true, that what you offered was the real thing, that the choice made in your absence was not an upgrade, but a miscalculation, that the narrative that was perhaps constructed around why you were the lesser option has now been contradicted by events in a way that doesn't require you to argue with it. That vindication is real. I'm not going to minimize it or tell you it shouldn't matter. It matters. It's a legitimate human experience to feel the particular relief of having the world catch up to what you always knew. But here's what I want to offer alongside that, because I think it's the more important thing. Your value was never contingent on what anyone saw or didn't see. It was never constructed by someone else's choice or dismantled by it. The correction of the record, the board revealing the true position, doesn't make you more valuable than you were when you were being passed over. It simply makes the truth more visible. The truth was always the same. You are the same. What's changed is only other people's ability to perceive something that was already there. Don't let the vindication reorganize your sense of self any more than the original slight was allowed to diminish it. Both events are external. What you are is not determined by either of them. I need to talk about something that's showing up in your reading that has nothing to do with this other person or this third party or the situation that unfolded, because something purely yours is present and it deserves space. Something in you got quieter during this period. Not in a broken way, in the way that something very strong gets when it's been through something it didn't fully expect to feel as much as it did. There's a particular quality of quietness that isn't defeat, it's more like a recalibration, like a compass that was subjected to a magnetic interference and is now slowly finding true north again, the needle settling, the orientation returning. That quietness is a form of integrity. It's you staying true to the internal standard that didn't change even when circumstances were arguing against it. It's you refusing to become something smaller or something louder or something more defended simply because something painful happened. That quietness is worth protecting. And what I see emerging from it, not dramatically, not all at once, but with the particular inevitability of something that has been building toward the surface, is a renewed clarity about what you actually want. Not what you're willing to accept, not what's available, what you want. The specific quality of connection, of being known, of love that doesn't require you to make yourself less in order to make the other person more comfortable. That standard, which was always yours, which you briefly perhaps doubted in the wake of being passed over for something that turned out to be nothing. That standard is still correct. It was always correct. And everything that's happened, including the painful part, has had the effect of making you more certain of it rather than less. You cannot want less than what you actually require. The experience has demonstrated that. The person who tried to want something simpler than you is now dealing with what simpler actually feels like in practice. You don't have to try that experiment. You already know what you need. Let me say something about the shape of what comes next, because this reading is pointing toward movement, not stasis, and I want to give you the most accurate version of it I can see. The person is going to look back at you. If they haven't already, they will. Not necessarily with the full accountability that would be ideal. People in the process of absorbing a humiliation are not always at their most gracious or most honest, but with a kind of reckoning in their eyes that was not there before. A recognition. The board revealed itself variety, where the position they're in makes clear something that the piece moving obscured. What they're going to see when they look back is that you are unchanged. Not frozen, not static, but fundamentally, recognizably, undeniably the same person in terms of what you bring and who you are, which is the same person who is always worth what you represented and who has not been diminished by what they chose or by what that choice produced. You will have continued being yourself completely and without apology through all of this. And that continuity, the simple, stubborn, quietly extraordinary fact of having remained yourself, is going to carry more power than any response or reaction or strategic positioning could have managed. Presence is the answer to being passed over, not performance of presence. Actual, continued, genuine presence in your own life, in your own becoming, in the ongoing project of being the most fully realized version of yourself you can manage in the given circumstances. That is what has been happening. That is what will continue to happen. And when they look back from wherever they are standing on the board that has now revealed itself, what they are going to see is someone who was always exactly who they appeared to be. Someone who offered exactly what they said they were offering. Someone who turned out to be, in retrospect, the most solid thing in a landscape that proved to be far less stable than it looked. That is not a small thing to be. That is, in fact, everything. I want to be honest about one more thing before I close, because this reading is asking for honesty rather than comfort, and I intend to honor that. There is no clean ending to what this reading describes. The vindication is real, but it coexists with the reality that something that hurt you happened. The correction of the record is meaningful, but it doesn't retroactively make the experience of being passed over painless. The person's eventual reckoning is coming, but that reckoning doesn't automatically translate into anything you're obligated to receive or respond to or make room for in your life. You get to decide what this means for you going forward, not based on what they deserve, not based on what would look gracious or evolved or emotionally sophisticated from the outside, based on what you actually want and what actually serves the life you're building and what is true to the standard you've always known was correct. The board has revealed itself. The game is not over. Games never end at the revealing, but the position is clear now in a way it wasn't before. And you, Virgo, are not the one who is suddenly looking at an indefensible position, wondering how the pieces got here. You are the one who played honestly, who showed exactly what was in your hand without concealment, without strategy designed to obscure your actual intentions. That's a different way to play. It's slower sometimes, it's more exposed. It doesn't always produce the result you wanted in the time frame you wanted it, but it produces something the other approach cannot. It produces a board position that you can actually stand behind. Drop something in the comments today specifically whether you've felt that particular quality of quietness I described. Not sadness exactly, not defeat. That specific internal settling that happens when you've been through something that asked more of you than you expected and you're still here, still yourself, still holding the standard. That's a real thing. And I want to know how many of you recognize it. And if there's been a third party situation in your life where the truth is starting to surface in the way this reading describes, you don't have to share details. Just tell me whether you felt this one land. I'll know what you mean.